Hey guys, this is Davor from Tennis House. I will give you a breakdown of the forehand today. The key points on the forehand, which is going to be, I want to talk about the grip, I'm going to talk about the split step, the shoulder turn, the loading of the legs, the contact point, the follow through, the finish. So stay with me. It takes about 3 to 5 minutes. And as always, if you like what I do, please subscribe, turn the notification buttons on, and let's get straight to it. So the grip on the forehand, the two main grips is the semi-western and a very strong like Eastern grip. They have the Western as well, and all grips have different things. They're pro and con, right? So for the Eastern grip, strong Eastern grip, you know, you can maneuver the ball really well in front of you. You're good on low balls. You know, with the semi-western, you're a little bit better on higher balls and have to struggle more on lower balls. It depends how tall you are, how agile you are, how you can move on the court. So many factors play in to determine, you know, what you're going to play and what you got taught from the beginning. So, you know, I have a very strong Eastern and a weak semi-western. And so now the first thing on the forehand, you know, when you see your opponent, they're right about the strike, you want to split step. That's key. You split step. And if you just hit a ball and you go back and you jump into the split, that's key, because that gives you the possibility to change direction either to the forehand or back inside. So once you split, you're landing on the front of your toes. So now when you turn on the forehand, your left hand stays on the racket hard, right here. So you turn like this, so the strings point to the crowd, your arms are a little bit out. And from this position, I tell my students always, so you split and turn. Now you can search the ball. If it's like forward, if it's coming backwards. So in this position, you can find a ball. But what too many recreational players do is they don't even split. But if they split, they just run to the ball and try to hit it. That's not going to work. You need to make sure that you split and turn. That's why you see Rafa, Roger, Dominic Thiem, Tsitsipas, they're rarely late on the ball. That's because their preparation is so important. Preparation is one of the most important things. That's why I brought it up. And the next thing is you split and turn and the arms are out, that you go shift your weight from the right to the left leg. The arms are out, so it goes from the right to the left, then the hands separate. So now you're in a good position here. And then some players drop the racket here like Roger, and then they pull and go and snap the hip in. Some players like Novak, when they split and they turn, they are here, the strings point actually there. And then Novak drops the racket and then they go and hit it. So every player has a preference and a different style. I like to keep it more simple in my lessons with my students, and I want them to be, when they drop it, I want them to be right here. So it's like they would draw, I always draw the reverse C. So this is the starting point now, we're right there. This here is the point when the strings point to the crowd. This little part till here is when they drop the racket. And this is the four, and then this is the last part, the follow through and finish. So that always helps, follow through and finish. So that always helps if you have checkpoints and you draw it. Number 1, number 2, then the dropping to number 3, and then the forward and out, number 4. And so make sure you split turn, set your foot. Now when you start to drop it, now we're talking about loading, that when you hear, as soon as you shift your weight forward, the hip's gonna snap in and you're gonna get into the leg position here, and then you get to your contact. So the hip is very important. So when you hit a forehand, you wanna make sure you engage your lower and upper body really well so you can create power when you hit it. So the hip is very important. Different exercises to incorporate that, and very important. The contact point will be about front foot, right here, and it changes too. If you have a Western grip, your contact might be a little bit closer to you since you use more rotational force. So with the strong Eastern, weak semi-Western, my contact is a little bit more in front of me, where my front toes are. And now it's important, it's what people forget. When you turn, chin is above your left shoulder, and then you hit, you get to the contact, make sure your head is still. Because if you move now too quickly, when I move my head, you see how my racket moves, right? So that you're gonna be hit off center. Very important to keep the head still contact, and you let the arms go through and your head is still, so you don't move up too early, and then you go forward and catch it. So you start with 2 hands, you get to the contact, you have 1 hand, and then when you catch it again, we have 2 hands. And every follow through is different. Roger likes to follow through a little bit lower, and then he catches it and goes like here. Novak is going a little bit higher, and it's again preference and what works better for you as a player. What you have to have in mind is this from here to contact up. This part looks the same for every player. What you do in the backswing, I don't care as long what you do here, as long as you get the racket in time in front of you. That's what I tell my players. So if my players play on clay court, they have a big backswing and they have a time there to get the contact there, I'm fine with it. If they struggle on hard court and they have this, we have to make it more compact, right? So then you go from the big one, maybe a little bit shorter, and then you get there in time for the contact point, especially when you play on a hard surface. That's going to be like totally game changer and totally different if you have a more compact stroke, right? So keep the contact in front of you. So after the contact, the follow through looks different for every player, the same as I said. Make sure you don't squeeze the racket too tight. The energy comes from being loose. So you take a finger or 2 off and swing a couple and see how loose you are. Then when the ball actually comes, try that out, because you want to let the racket work for you. You don't want to be the one that works the racket. So you let the racket work for you and let it go and be loose. That's very important. Too many players are stiff and tight. And yeah, so if you keep those things in mind, you should have a really solid forehand. One more thing, what I like to do is that part when you go and hit up on that ball, you know, you can put a quarter on the frame here, and then you can let the players or students go up, and they are not allowed to drop it, because here you need to be very stable. And remember, if your legs are stable when you go to a ball, you need to have a good stability there, because if you run to the ball and your legs are not stable, you cannot have control in the upper part of the body. So you need to make sure when you run to the ball that you have a good stability. When you swing through it too, that you're stable. And there are a couple of exercises you can do. You can hit and freeze here and control your upper body. Many things you can do. Very important that you, especially when you're a beginner player, that you learn that when the legs are set, the rest is going to work really well. But you need to make sure that you have a good base when you hit the balls. And yeah, so that was it on the forehand. You know, I hope you could find a couple of pointers you like. Oh, I forgot one more important thing, guys. Very good drill at the beginning, you know, when I was drawing the reverse C. So just imagine you have a reverse C here on the fence. So what I forgot that earlier, what too many players do wrong is when they go, they don't stay on the right side. They turn too far around, and then you have the internal rotation is too much, and they have too much angular force and don't get actually to the ball, right? So you want to stay on the right side and get the power here. And I always tell my players, it's like a wall here. This is the wall, and you can stay like Novak is here, that's fine, but he doesn't go around here. He stays on that line here. So when you go, you stay there, and that's where you get the power from. So do not go too far around. So this helps tremendously. If you keep the tip of the racket on here, that's the beginning of the reverse C right here. You go till here, you go down, and you go forward and up. If you keep the shape of a reverse C on the fence and keep the tip all the time on the fence, you're gonna have the perfect form on the forehand. And yeah, I hope you liked the video. Share it with some friends, and more to come, guys.